Howdy guys and gals, I'm Kyle Broderick. You're currently standing hip deep in social regressive. Today we're going to take a close look at the Boyds At-One stock. I've wanted to test an At-One ever since they came out, and thankfully Boyds was able to send me this one to evaluate, and it has been just a blast to shoot. I've come away with a very high opinion of this, and not just me, but some of the other fellow shooters that we had in a recent challenge. We went out and we shot moving targets at 100, 200, 300, and then finally back at 600 yards. That way we could test some of the various functions on here, which include not just that adjustability so you can get it to actually fit your shape, but we swapped out some of the parts on here so that we could test out some of its prone shooting versus standing and kneeling. We did everything, and we all came away with a really high opinion of this rifle. Now, before we start really delving into this stock and what makes it work the way that it does, I wanted to talk about purpose. And right now, there are a lot of options on the market. There are some wonderful rifles out there that can be had for actually very little money. You have great options from Savage, from Ruger, from TC, from Remington, and these are going to have just great parts on them. Like, they have good barrels, they have a good head spacing system, they have solid receivers, they have good adjustable triggers, nice bolts, and really with a lot of these, you just can't go wrong. They're very excellent rifles, and there's one part in general that's holding them back. Some of them are going to have some uprated parts if you spend a little bit more money, but in general, if you're spending about $300 or below for one of these rifles, you're going to be getting a kind of Tupperware stock that's going to have a lot of flex to it, and it's probably not going to fit you particularly well. And then kind of the final facet there that you're going to be missing is a good balance. So say you pick up a good sporter weight rifle, it's going to have a very kind of forward heavy feel to it just because there's really no mass back in the buttstock. And you can fix all of these issues with a good wood or laminate stock like Boyds offers. They have a bunch of great shapes. They're going to be good for, say maybe particularly for hunting or maybe particularly for prone. And this one is one that kind of purports to be able to handle all of those situations. You should be able to shoot this in the prone with the right parts, and you can adjust it to kind of fit various scenarios. Before we start jumping into those, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my patrons of the Destructive Arts. Thank you guys for continuing to support the project. We have some great new some tech going on behind the scenes so that we can get some better audio, a little bit better lighting, things like that. So yeah, thanks a bunch you guys, especially Peter. And now let's go take a look at what's going on here. Take a moment to just enjoy the angles and colors of this stock because it is beautiful. This is going to stand out very much at the range. What you're looking at right here is forest camo laminate, and there are a bunch of other options as well, including Applejack, Blackjack, Blaze, Coyote, Nutmeg, Pepper, Royal Jacaranda, Royal, Sky, and Zombie Hunter. Whether you're a target shooter trying to stand out or a hunter trying to blend in, you're going to find a color that matches your needs. I went with this forest camo since this is going to be my deer rifle, and I really want this thing to blend into my environment out here in eastern Oklahoma. These colors should work really well. In the foreground, you are looking at Coyote laminate, and you can see that this one looks a little bit funky. You can get this ripple effect applied to any of the colors that I mentioned, and you end up with this effect that to me looks a lot like a Gaboon Viper. And if you've ever seen a Gaboon Viper and how well they blend into a forest floor, it may look a little funky right now here on my bench or out at the range, but watch out if you lay this rifle down. I think it would disappear. I think it's an effective camouflage. Take a look at this black panel on the front of the forearm. This is the slim panel. It has a little bit of a pebbled texture and finger grooves, but this does not have any overmolded rubber. This is just a simple polymer. It does include 2 swivel studs, which is a great value. I'm really happy that they threw this in. That way you can run a bipod or some other device out front here, and then you can still have room for your sling. And it's going to get you a little bit of distance in case you do have kind of a bulky bipod like this one. If you're in the mood for something that's going to fill your hand a little bit more, then check this out. This is a beavertail style forearm. This is going to get you a little bit more comfort. It has kind of an overmolded rubber on it, and this is an extra part that you can buy to swap onto your rifle. It also includes those same 2 swivel studs, and yeah, generally if you just have larger hands, you want a bit more comfort than the angular surfaces, the planes that you get on the At-One straight out of the box. You can get that with that beaver tail. Working our way back to the trigger guard, this is an optional extra that you should just plain add to the cart unless you absolutely know that the trigger guard coming off your donor rifle is going to work in the stock. This is one where I had some issues with the Stevens 200. It had a kind of funky trigger guard that's based on one of the older Savage models. I guess they just had some extra in their inventory and it did not fit in there, so I had to get this extra steel one. Moving back here to the grip area, what we're wearing right now, this is the Target style grip. This one has a bit of a palm swell going on. It has some overmolded rubber. It's much more vertical. And you do also have this that came on the stock originally. The vertical is an option. You can buy those panels extra, and they have some really funky ones that have different colors like skulls and things like that. You can get all kinds of zombie green in addition to the black. And yeah, so this is the hunter style that sits back really far. It has kind of that hunter angle that you want for when you're leaning forward and taking your shots. And then when you want to go prone, or if you just have larger hands, then this grip might work out a little better for you. Included on each of the stocks is one of these quick detach sling attachments and one of the little kind of holes right here for attaching that, which is again a really great value. If you have kind of a single point sling, or you have a sling that you want to work out to one of those front QD studs, then this is going to work out well for you. And then back here, this is the part that you just can't miss. This is where the magic happens. This is the adjustable button right here for the comb. And then you have a button for the length of pull. The length of pull is adjustable between, I believe it is 12.5 inches to 14. And they do have some extras if you want to get into some other lengths of pull or some other special features like this one right here. This buttstock fits into the exact same position, and it actually allows you to adjust vertically. You can move this butt pad up and down to get a different style of shooting. If you're going prone and you want to have a much higher butt stock relative to the bore line, then this is what you want. This is that optional extra. And then there is a version that will get you out to, I think, 15.5 inch length of pull if you're one of the bigger guys and you just need a longer length of pull. While we're looking at the buttstock, I need to point out a couple of items. When the stock first ships, you're going to have some difficulty pressing these buttons. This one has broken in over time, and everything's a little bit easier to push. But in general, this is under a lot of spring tension to make sure that it does not collapse, especially here on the buttstock. This is a heavier spring. It needs to be able to mate up with this screw right here and catch it and keep it from collapsing under fire. So this is going to require quite a bit of tension to push this in. And you might actually need a bench or get this thing on a flat surface at first in order to press in this button and collapse or extend the stock. Also, be careful if you're out in the field and you need to adjust the stock in any way. If you press this button and go a little too far, you can actually end up launching the button out into the woods. So make sure that you have good retention on everything, that you have something covering this, otherwise you could lose it. The final part we'll look at is this panel on the underside of the stock. It's just plastic, it attaches by 2 screws, and it has a single QD swivel stud for your sling. I think in the future we're going to see some panels coming out for this that might include a parallel rider. If you're a target shooter and you want a bag rider that's going to be parallel with your bore line, we might see one of those. We might see M-lock or Picatinny for people running monopods. We'll see how many parts end up being made for this. I think a lot of shooters will agree with me that the Boyds At-One stock is very attractive. It incorporates a lot of modern design features, including these great big, kind of smooth, curved panels that are met by creases. And these creases work all the way through the stock, including into this grip area, which might be controversial. It includes some creases up here at the top of the wrist. You can kind of see an angle going right here. There's another one right over the top. And then if you're running the hunter style grips, you're also going to get a pretty sharp corner around the front of that, which deviates from traditional stock design. Up here at the front on the handguard, or on the forearm, you're going to have basically a 90-degree angle going up into here. Some people might find this to be a bit much. They're going to feel those hot spots. They're going to be annoyed by it. In my own shooting, and I'm kind of a purist, really, I didn't notice it all that much. It felt pretty darn natural. The wrist, I think they may have actually redesigned this a little bit from the original model that they had. I remember it looking very sharp across the top, but it looks like they may have added an extra little bevel here to more easily get the thumb across the top without feeling hot spots. If you buy your At-One and find that the angle on the forearm is a bit too sharp for you, don't forget that you can pick up this extra panel, which is going to have more of an organic shape. Put all these parts and features together, and what do you get? Is this a form over function stock? Is it a gimmick? No, it's not that at all. This is a shooter's stock. And in that shooting experience where we were taking shots, standing, sitting, kneeling, all the way back to prone, in each of those positions, I didn't really think about the stock all that much. I mean, yeah, if I saw it, it was beautiful. And if I was just kind of, messing around with it and feeling some of the facets, I was kind of wondering, okay, how is this going to feel when I actually start shooting? But then actually once the shooting started, it just became invisible, which is exactly what I want from a stock. I want everything to be adapted to me. I don't want to have to be craning around and, trying to adapt myself to fit a stock and get behind the scope. And that's exactly how this works. So it's just me, trigger, target, and my view through the scope, and that was it. And it just felt very natural. Balance is great. Since it's putting more of the weight back here, you have some metal parts back on the back end. And with that total overall weight of 3 pounds going into the stock itself, yeah, it felt planted in the prone, and it felt very balanced, especially in the offhand. So it was just natural to shoot. And don't just take my word for it. Let's take a look at some of the notes from some of the other shooters. So this is Kedrick. The first thing I noticed about the At-One stock is, of course, it is gorgeous. The colors are vibrant and amazing. The feel of the finish is great. I don't like the feel of a grippy gloss finish that some wood stocks have. This stock has a perfect, smooth satin feel to it. It's great. The rifle feels solid and well balanced. The At-One stock is a thing of beauty to look at. I'm not completely sold on the angular shape of the forearm in terms of comfort while shooting though. The flat bottom is an advantage, but that edge resting in my palm felt inorganic. So for him, probably what he'd want to go with is this more beaver tail right here. It's going to get you a little bit more of a palm fill, and it's not a super wide beaver tail like you get with some of the the pure prone rifles out there, but this could kind of take some of those edges out of his palm. I've definitely become a huge fan of Boyd stocks. Having a beautiful wood stock with the adjustability of the best competition rifles is the marriage of the very best of both worlds. It's like a carpenter and a machinist collaborated and had to show off their skills. And yeah, I got to agree with that. It kind of looks like this should be made of metal or something, just with those crisp edges. It reminds me a lot of car design, actually. For me, I'll go with one of their other forearm options, but the hard part will be choosing between the color options. And that's true because there really are some just fun ones. These are Corey's notes. Stock was very comfortable when shooting from the standing, kneeling, and prone positions. While it was lightweight and would be comfortable to carry in a hunting situation, it absorbed the recoil very well and was comfortable to shoot from every position. And this is an opinion that I have to mirror. The butt pad back there is kind of thin, or at least it looks thin and like it wouldn't be all that squishy. And then you have the total lightweight configuration of this rifle, and I was expecting it to punch a little bit more in the prone, and it really didn't. We could have just shot this thing all day. It felt great. The grips are nice, and being interchangeable makes it easy to adjust to shooters with various hand sizes. That's a really good point there too. If you have some of the bigger kind of hollow hands and you want something to sort of fill up your hand, you can get a bit more palm swell out of the vertical grip here, and you might want to leave it on for your offhand shooting as well. I'd rather be shooting with a more vertical grip when I'm out hunting than one of the swept back grips in the prone. The adjustable butt pad is excellent for shooters with different draw lengths and absorb the recoil, making for a pleasant shooting experience. Now, and this is where I'm going to deviate with these guys. They are objectively wrong. We were shooting a $2,500 CMMG Mark III DTR2 rifle, which I'm currently reviewing. Wonderful rifle. We were actually shooting at the same moving targets, and we just waited till we got a little bit further back on the range to start shooting. But everybody kept saying that they actually kind of enjoyed the shooting experience on this better. I totally differ. The CMMG just rocks, and you're going to see in those reviews later what I think of that. But he says here, on a side note, while shooting the CMMG was a really nice experience and was very enjoyable to shoot, of the two setups, I actually enjoyed shooting your 308 setup more. It was simple, yet effective. Now that in my own testing, I've kind of proven that this stock works really well in various scenarios, does that mean that this is the be-all, end-all stock? You don't need to look at any of the other shapes in the Boyds catalog, for example? No, the answer is no. If you want to set up a rifle purely for hunting, then you really need to take a look at the Heritage, the Classic. Those are going to have some slightly more ergonomic shapes, and it's going to be set up just purely for hunting. You're going to get that nice Monte Carlo on the Heritage that's going to fit your cheek really well. This one is adaptable and adjustable for all kinds of things, but if you know that you want one particular kind of shooting and you're going to stick with that, then you might want to look at some of the others that are more fixed. It's at least worth a look. Some of those can also include the adjustable cheek riser, but you might want to take a look at some of the more hard edge for certain styles of shooting that you're going to be doing. If you know that you're probably going to be swapping around between a whole bunch of different shooters, like say you want a rifle that you can have work for multiple people in your family, or you want to be able to do different types of shooting like we did here, then yeah, the At-One really is it's going to be the go-to. It just works for everything. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. Even if you didn't like this particular content, go ahead and subscribe. There's probably something coming that's more up your alley. Check out this playlist right here. This is going to have videos in a similar vein to what you just watched. These two videos we cherry-picked for you. And finally, the Social Regressive is on Patreon. So you can become a patron of the Destructive Arts and earn some goodies while helping us to provide high-quality videos just by kicking us a few bucks a month. Thanks a bunch for your patronage.